Now that we've had a chance to observe the museum and relics and how some of these commanders are performing, it's time to update our tier list, and I've even got predictions for the new commanders that are on their way into the game, Bertrand and Nevsky. So stick around in this video for everything we've figured out about the Rise of Kingdoms metagame, which commanders are the very best in the open field, rallying, garrisoning, and more. And before we begin, allow me to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, Infinite Galaxy. Infinite Galaxy is like Rise of Kingdoms, but in space, where you collect flagships and warships, and they even just released a brand new game mode called Ace Strike, where you are controlling a fighter from a third-person view, and you're crushing other warships. I mean, this reminds me a lot of, like, you know, a mobile game version of Wing Commander, but this actually pulls from the stuff that you've accumulated in the game, which is really awesome. And if you want to join us in Infinite Galaxy, then use the link in the description, which will support the channel, and join us in Nebula 13. Nebula 13 is where this is all going down. I have been playing this game for almost a year now, and I'm still very much enjoying it. We've got a great team here in this Nebula, and we're undefeated in the Outermost Crusade so far, which is the equivalent of Kingdom versus Kingdom in this game. So join us in Nebula 13. What are you waiting for? So let's get things started. I actually removed a category that I used to spend a lot of time reviewing, which is barbarians and forts, because, like, yeah, the PvE stuff, most people will figure it out, and yeah, AoE barb farming is good. I'm not worried about that. I think the thing we're mostly worried about here is open field, rallying, and garrisoning. I'm also going to talk about city defense and also canyon. And for those of you that aren't familiar with my rating system, I'll flash that up on the screen very quickly. And let's get started with city defense. And the queen of city defense is still unchanged. If I can find her, and it slays me every time I try to do this, it's actually Theodora. Now, Theodora is really strong for defending your city because in most cases, if your city is getting hit, you're in control of the scenario. You don't have War Frenzy because you've been playing smart, so you can throw up a bubble, put up a peace shield when you get low, and you want to do as much damage as possible before you get low. And that's where the damage bonus when you're above 50% is really good. Clearing debuffs is really good. Circle AoE is really good. I rate her at the top. However, I think historically I slightly underrated Jadwiga. I bumped her up to an S- from an A+. I also bumped up Amanatori because the silence immunity is actually freaking crucial when you're getting swarmed, especially by a bunch of Guans. And if you want to see how insane it is, when a high power player is getting swarmed by Guans, they still kind of get wrecked because their city can't cast active skills. I'll have a card up in the top for a video where that actually happened, and if they had had silence immunity, I mean, this commander didn't exist at the time, but if they had it, it would have gone a very long way. I also, I'm sure people will be very happy about this, bumped up Esong, who not only got a relic, which, hey man, free stats on Esong is freaking amazing. 10% defense, 3% extra skill damage, but also he's really good on high power cities. The skill damage scales really nicely the more troops you have, so I actually think he deserves to be bumped back up into that upper echelon of high power commanders. Now, if we advance to the open field, this is where things changed a lot. I mean, even Minamoto is getting a lot of play right now, and for good reason. I want to say, though, that I think still the best commanders for the open field are very much unchanged. There will be new entrants. More commanders will be viable in the open field in ways that they were not before, but things are about the same. I still would give Guan Yu the S+ rating. AoE silence, it just is freaking god tier, man. He does a lot of damage. He has an AoE silence, and I have yet to find something more powerful than that. But with that said, the new Commander Nevsky coming into the game, oh my god, I'm giving him an S. Bertrand, I'm giving an S-. Honda, I actually bumped up. And I think this is very much courtesy of Cortex recommendations and his playing with this commander, that he is deserving of an S. An S is a very high rating on my channel, okay? S tier. I mean, that the only thing that could be better is S+. So I'm saying he is the meta. And I think that we saw this in Ark of Osiris League, and I think he also does lots of damage. I think he's a little weaker in a KVK context where you're a little more worried about Sev wounds, but when you aren't, Ark of Osiris, man, ooh. The AoE template for this dude is absolutely nuts, and he is doing very well in Arc and just in general in the open field. Also, by the way, I hear that he is God tier if you're playing Champions of Olympia. So I think he is worthy of that S rating for open field. He's very strong. And what you will find surprising is I actually bumped a lot of commanders down. And I did that because this is a relative scale, okay? It's relative to all the other commanders. So I bumped down commanders that I thought were not as good relative to your other options. So I bumped down Suleiman to an A. I actually heavily bumped down Constantine to an A because I'm finding him just to be a punching bag in the open field. Great in Canyon. But in the open field, he's a punching bag. I bumped Edward of Woodstock down to an A. Maybe he deserves to be lower. Rip Banana Helmet. I mean, I don't know when you want Edward of Woodstock when instead you could use Honda. Moctezuma, I bumped down to an A. Khan, I bumped down to an A. Lu Bu, I bumped down to an A. Even Lu Bu is getting wrecked. And a part of the reason for that is that now that Nevsky is in the game, there's a defense reduction effect that rivals what Lu Bu could be doing, okay? But I did bump up some commanders, and I think it's noteworthy to talk about this. And I didn't bump them up quite as much as you might have expected, as I was saying. So everybody's talking about Minamoto, and I bumped him up. I bumped him up to an A+, but I don't think he's still a meta commander. And what I mean by that is, in your perfect world, you'd probably be using something else. You'd probably use XY. You'd probably use William. And I'm not saying he's not good. He is very good in the open field now, but I don't think he is the top tier. But what's interesting is I think you do want a Minamoto running around, specifically if you were swarming a flag or swarming players, because this debuff, a chance to make it so the target takes additional damage, is savage. And it just is instant proc, debuff lands, and they start taking more damage for 3 seconds. I would not be ashamed to be battling with a relic Minamoto in the open field. I also bumped up Mehmed to an S-, and now I think he deserves to sort of sit in that upper tier of commanders. And a part of the reason that I think he deserves this is that the area of effect damage is just very strong, and his boost from the relic makes him very viable in the open field. You use him as a secondary to so many different commanders. Honestly, like any damage commander primary and smash Mehmed as the secondary, and he will be fine. Some pairs he's better than others. For example, I really like Saladin Mehmed for mobility. You use full calves. I think that's a great combination. But he's earned his S-. And other commanders that got relicked also, I mean, I bumped them up, but I don't know how noteworthy they are. I still don't think that Julius Caesar is going to be meta. I didn't change El Cid's rating. He was A+ before. I'm going to leave him at A+. Barca, I mean, I bumped him up to an A+. I actually did bump him up a little bit because his debuff is actually very, very reasonable. His damage factor has always been a little bit low. And it's possible he should probably just still sit at an A. But I have seen him paired with Trajan and perform pretty darn well. I don't know why I'd use him over an Ethelfled. I don't think people are. So, I don't know. Maybe the A+ was a little aggressive here. I gave Freddy an A. I bumped him up like ever so slightly, like he's better, but I don't think he's good enough still, even after the testing that we did. He still really suffers from the same downfall that he's always had, which is staying connected with the target and no march speed to actually do that. And Ragnar Shaggy Pants, I mean, I didn't change at all. Yet Vega, I bumped down ever so slightly to an A because, like, man, I just don't think that she's really all that great in the open field. I would not be using her if I had the choice of Minamoto, for example, to be using instead, because his debuff is so powerful. Our next category is rallying cities, and I think here is where things are going to really shake up quite a bit. I think that the new S+ commander for rallying cities, and maybe this is a little bold, but we've bumped up Mehmed to be the best of the best. He has disgusting amounts of damage to cities, like absolutely disgusting. And with his relic, he is now stronger than ever. I still feel like you need some other commander to be able to crank that damage, like an XY or Nebu. I mean, you just have so many options with him. You've even seen siege rallies with him, right? As a way to kill off your siege, but also, dude, Freddy Mehmed siege rallies will do work on a player that's offline. Not that, you know, any rally will, but a way to mobilize your siege against a player that's, you know, not deep in enemy territory is always welcomed. So other commanders that I changed around, and there's just very minor changes here. I don't know why I had Leonidas at an A+. I bumped him down. I bumped down Charles Martel, even though we got relicked. Like, why are you rallying a city with Charles Martel. CJ, I don't think has been getting any use for rallying cities. I bumped him down. Edward of Woodstock, Rip Banana Helmet, I bumped him down. But otherwise, the rallying city meta is about the same. But I do think that Nevsky will probably clock in at an S tier. I think he's going to be very good. The new wheel commander. And Bertrand, I'm giving an S-. Bertrand, I feel like, is going to suffer tremendously from the blood craving debuff from Gilgamesh. So he can even get one-trooped with it, which is just disgusting. I worry about his viability solely because of the blood craving one-troop debuff. Like, how do you counter him? You one-troop cheese it. And, like, that probably ends up just being the meta way of dealing with it. I don't know. We'll find out. But this is good segue to rallying. Rallying, baby. This is maybe what people want to know. I think that Nevsky paired with maybe XY or Bertrand is going to be the meta rally. I gave Bertrand an S-, Nevsky the S+, and I mean, XY is still going to be really great. I bumped down Gilgamesh, who I had previously as the S+, to just being S, which is still a great rating. So I think you're going to have Gilgamesh, Nebu as a rally that you need to be thinking about. I think you're going to have Nevsky with maybe XY or Bertrand as like a thing that's really terrifying. Maybe XY Bertrand is a thing. I don't know. And then for infantry, obviously, Pakal Herald is just good. It's just good. It continues to be strong. And I think that it'll see a lot of use into the future. Unless the new Cav rally is just completely broken, I think we're still going to see the rock, paper, scissors of archers, cavalry, and infantry moving forward into this new metagame. But when it comes to defending objectives, very little has changed, with one major exception, which is that I think in this new flavor of the world, it would be very hard to give Amanatori and Artemisia the title as like the best garrison, because a new Cav rally is coming out, and presumably it will really do damage to Amanatori and Artemisia. I'm still giving them S, but I think the new S+ is Jadwiga with YSS. I think that's going to be our new go-to strong garrison. And like, man, it's just not a coincidence I have been cranking on my cavalry gear to get my set in a really good spot to be ready for this new, I think, cavalry-dominated metagame. If you're wondering what troop you should train, it's probably cavalry. Although we'll see. You know, I think that until we get a counter to the new commander, Nevsky, he is going to be very dominant in shaping how players ultimately play the metagame. So now we can look at the final category, and that is Canyon. And Canyon has not really changed much at all. I still have Esong as the S+, because the AoE damage from Esong is just really busted. It's very good. 10 out of 10. Can recommend. I did bump up Honda ever so slightly because his AoE, dude, that AoE template is good. You put him in the back lane, I wouldn't make him tank, but that AoE template will do a lot of damage on Honda. And then also, one other minor change, I bumped down Ramses from S to S-, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, I like Ramses. Yeah, he's good, but I wouldn't say he is in the very best of the best teams right now. I don't think he belongs there. And in this list, an S rating means like it is the meta, the best of the best as far as we've been able to figure it out. Those commanders are all in those very, very top tier teams. So S-, I mean, look, it's still a great rating. I did bump up ever so slightly Minamoto and also Barca, because you would be shocked how well Barca can do in Canyon, but I'd still give him an A+. But I've seen some top tier teams like bust out Barca. It's just weird, but with Trajan, it can work. Just like an Ethelfled, like it can work. And I mentioned this earlier, I think in the video, but these debuffs are actually really quite strong. So when it comes to the overall rating for all commanders and Rise of Kingdoms, we've dethroned the S+ commander. XY was previously the best of the best overall, at least according to the way that I rate him. And now I actually would give it to Nevsky. I think Nevsky is going to be the new best commander in the game. I think that his kit is just too strong. I rated him S, S+, and S-. And most importantly, open field and rallying is where he's going to be just completely nuts. This, of course, is my prediction. And I do want to give a quick shout out to my Alliance members who helped participate in shaping this rating system. I jump in voice and then chat through it with the folks that are there. So this information is not just, Chisgule's understanding of the world, but also others have contributed. So thank you. I appreciate you. And if you've got any thoughts about the overall meta here, I think you'll probably be surprised to see that in the overall ratings, really very little changed, even for the relic commanders. Because although commanders got relics like Charles Martel, I still don't think Charles Martel is a commander you exactly want to be, in a perfect world, bring to the open field. Now, to be clear, on my restart project, I'm going to use him. And I'm going to use him in the Season of Conquest. I am hyped that he got relicked. But I still very heavily invest in the open field philosophy that AoE damage is the king. And Charles Martel just doesn't deliver that. The counterattack damage is cool, but it's kind of like Attila Takeda. You can get some good trades, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's important for players who don't have the resources. But the meta, the thing that you'll see in open field and probably Ark of Osiris, is not going to be a relic Charles, which is why, like, his rating doesn't change. And Ethelflood was already very good, and I wouldn't really change her rating. And Mulan was good, but I wouldn't change her rating. I wouldn't say that she's like suddenly the best of the best. So these are not omissions that I haven't talked about them. I just think that they stay relative to everybody else about the same, and that those buffs were really important for maintaining their viability, given how competitive it is now to be a top-tier commander in Rise of Kingdoms. Whew! Man, that was a mouthful, but I hope that was a helpful explanation. And I am always eager for your thoughts down below in the comments. Is there anything that we didn't get right or that needs adjustment? I mean, there's literally over, 200, 300 different ratings on this screen right now. So, yeah, we might have missed a thing or two. So let me know your thoughts down below. Where did we sort of get things right, and where did we make mistakes? And check out our sponsor, again, Infinite Galaxy. There will be a pinned comment where you can go download the game and play with us in Nebula 13, and that new game mode looks freaking sick. I've been really enjoying it. And until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies.